Okay, Khash Saghafi here. Today's topic is how to make the home buying process easy. So if you're pre-approved, you're getting pre-approved, you're starting to look, you're starting to think about it, this video, you need it to pay attention to see how to make this a lot easier and lower that stress. But before we do, I want you to click the like button. That helps me a ton, so I got to get some likes here to keep this stuff in the feed and stuff, so it helps me a ton. Naturally, subscribe to my page. Check out my page. I have hundreds of videos over home buying. Some videos are 20 to 30 seconds long. Some are like these are 10 to 20 minutes long, but they're all valuable and they all give you good information. So hopefully you take care of that one, and we'll be showing some information later to click on the next video that's coming. But how do you make the home buying process easier? So anybody who's bought a house knows that's pretty traumatic. There's a lot of stress involved. I do tell people that there's a lot to buying a house that brings a ton of stress with it. And I always tell people when I give them that pre-approval, they say, Khash, oh my God, I have so much anxiety, this is so scary. And I always tell them, I say, just keep telling yourself this, it only gets worse. And then when we get to closing day, it's like a nuclear bomb going off that just blows everything straight out in outer space for you. And they start laughing, and I'm like, the scary thing is there's gonna come a day when you say, Khash, you were actually being serious, okay? So there are steps we can take, everybody, to make the process easier. You want to write this stuff down at home and you want to pay close attention to me, okay? So let's start at the beginning. So we're going to go through the actual process itself for when you get pre-approved, when you start setting up showings with your real estate agent, when you start going into homes to look, when you make your offer is accepted, you're starting your home inspection, the appraisal, you're going through underwriting, you're conditionally approved, you're getting ready for closing, the final. We're going to go through this process, okay? Let's begin with this one, the pre-approval. When you are getting pre-approved, okay, if the lender you're talking to, and by the way, if you need a lender, I might know one, his name's Khash, and he does loans in 45 states, but that's beside the point, so you can call me, of course. But when you go to your lender, if the lender you're going to does not collect all of the following documents, and if you're watching me at home, write these down. And if you already have a pre-approval in your hands and you did not turn these documents over, write them down and turn them over, okay? This is how we make the process easier, by giving all of the documents up front immediately as much as we can. Your two most recent pay stubs from your job. If you're self-employed, I'll get to you in a second. But if you work a regular job, you're an employee, you work at a business or a company or whatever, your two most recent pay stubs. Your last 2 years of W-2s. Your last 2 years of tax returns. Your two most recent bank statements. If you have a 401k, your most recent 401k statement. If you've changed jobs, in the last 2 years, you basically want to give the loan officer sort of like your resume, something that shows your start and stop dates of your previous job and your new job. If you've worked at 3 different jobs in the last 2 years, I always tell people this, list out your dates of unemployment as if it was a job, such as, don't just put, I worked at ABC until July of 2021, and then I started at XYZ in March of 22. I'm going to ask you, what'd you do in between? Now you're going to put down, I was unemployed from July to June. Write that in there, start date, stop date. You want the loan officer to see your employment history, and not even so much your employment history, you want the loan officer to see the last 24 consecutive months of your working life. And if out of the last 24 months, you've only worked for 20 of them, guess what? I want to go back even farther back in time than that. Show me the last 36 months, the last 48 months. If you do all of this stuff up front, it's going to make life a lot easier later. For people who work variable hours, maybe you don't work 40 hours every single week. Maybe you work 36 hours. Maybe you work 32 hours. Maybe some weeks you work 45 and others you work 28. If you work variable hours, make sure you are telling the loan officer all of that. A lot of people will say, I work 40 hours a week. I work 35 hours a week, when the truth is you don't work 35 hours a week. You might average 35 hours a week, but the truth is that we've got to calculate all that stuff out. So to make life easier and make the process easier, step one on the pre-approval, you've got to dump everything out there. If you are self-employed, we need your last 2 years of filed tax returns. We need proof that you paid the income taxes that you owed. If you're watching me right now or you're a real estate agent, and by the way, real estate agents, like, you should be watching these videos because, and you should be getting educated on this yourself also. And by the way, I do seminars on Zoom. They're free, doesn't cost you anything. It's the first Thursday of every single month from 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's all free. You click the Zoom link, you log in, you see me standing like kind of here, where I'm at sort of right now in our building, standing here doing my thing for 2 straight hours, educating you. And as a real estate agent, why should you learn this stuff? Simple, because when your borrower runs into a problem the day before closing and the loan officer comes back and says, they're not working 40 hours a week, this is a disaster, you're sitting here saying, what does that mean? You need to learn this stuff too. You might not do loans, but you want to learn how this stuff goes. So if you're self-employed, last 2 years of filed tax returns, I want proof of that you paid your income taxes. So for example, when you filed your 2020 taxes and your accountant said you owe $12,383, legitimately, I should see that money coming out of your bank account back, last year or whenever it was filed. And if you did not pay it and you are on a back income tax repayment plan, you know what? I want a copy of that back income tax repayment plan. So for self-employed people, it's the last 2 years of filed returns. It's proof that you paid your taxes, and they have to be filed and done. And if you're sitting here saying, Khash, I'm self-employed, I haven't filed my taxes in years, then you ain't getting a loan. Just come out and tell the loan officer that. Don't beat around the bush and try all this shell game garbage with, giving them tax returns. I'll never forget this one. I had this happen to me 12 times in the year 2012. And I remember it because it was 12 in 2012, okay? 12 times, 12 different customers, 12 different purchase transactions. The tax returns that the customers gave me were not filed with the IRS. By the way, that's called mortgage fraud. But all they did was waste everybody's time. They lost their appraisal money and a lot of other stuff just because they weren't honest about what they were turning over. They turned over a bunch of make-believe stuff. We ended up finding out about it, and the truth is we will. But if you're self-employed, you want to get those tax returns filed. Everything I'm telling you right now is to make the process easier. Turn everything over up front. Now, let's go over setting expectations when you start looking at homes, okay? From the lender you're working with, you want to know your boundaries. How much can you go up to for a house? What's the general payment at your ceiling? I always tell people, I set boundaries, okay? We want to set boundaries. This is your ceiling. At your ceiling, this is your payment. At that level, this is how much money you need. Do you have all of that? If you do not have all of the money necessary to get to closing, to close your transaction, here's what I'm telling you to do right now. Write down on a sheet of paper the upcoming dates that you will have the money in your bank account to close the transaction. If you write it down, your likelihood of achieving it and doing it in that time frame goes up dramatically. I can't tell you how many customers have said to me, Khash, I'm going to have the money. And I say to them, when? And they'll say, Khash, don't worry, I'll have it. And I'll say, I am going to worry about it, okay? And I'm going to tell you that, by the way, up front. I'm one of the few loan officers out there. I'm going to tell you this stuff up front on day one. And yes, I'm going to say that to you. I'm going to say, I am going to worry about it. And what you don't realize is that when you get to closing day and everybody's bearing down on you and the moving truck is there and your landlord's kicking you out of where you are, you're going to look back and say, man, I wish I'd have been more specific with my dates of money. So if you don't have all the down payment money to make the process easier of buying a home, write it down on paper. What upcoming dates are you going to have the money? Lay that all out. When you go look at houses, this is super important when you actually go out to look at houses, is don't look at the house for what it is. Look at the house for what it could be, okay? Don't forget, when you move into the house, you're going to change some of the carpeting, change some of the flooring. You're going to paint the walls. You're going to change some of the cabinets in the bathrooms. You're going to make it your own. You're going to change some of the landscaping on the outside. You're going to clean up the garage. So when you walk into a house, don't look at what it is today. Look at what you could turn it into over the next couple of years. Remember, homes are long-term investments. I'm not saying you're going to own it for 30 years, but you're going to own it for a few years. You want to make it your own. So when you're out there, I want to set your expectations for what you're going to see. You're going to see a lot of different houses, and maybe you won't even see a lot of different houses. You know what you want. You're going to see the yard and the fence and the garage and different things that you want. Another thing you want to pay attention to is that When you make a strong offer to the seller, when you go to actually make an offer, a strong offer gets a strong response. If you just want to come in and make some ridiculous offer and lowball and undercut the seller, you might not get any response. So you want to be realistic with the offers you make. When you go into contract on the house, that's when the lender comes back into the picture. That's when the actual loan begins. When the actual loan begins, you want to follow these steps. You want to follow these steps, actually. This first step I'm going to tell you from the time the pre-approval is given. Don't buy anything out of the ordinary. Don't let anybody else pull your credit. Don't charge up anything on your credit cards that you don't ordinarily charge. So if you normally charge on your credit card at the gas station, the grocery store, and stuff like that, that's fine. Keep doing it. Don't go and buy furniture 12 months same as cash. Don't go to Home Depot and go buy appliances. Khash, they were running a sale. It was Memorial Day weekend at Home Depot. Don't do any of that stuff. You cannot do any big ticket item purchases from the time you are pre-approved until the time you are closing. I've had people buy cars halfway through the transaction, okay? Don't do any of that stuff. Don't change jobs. Don't cut back your work schedule. Don't pull money out of your bank account. Do not move money around, okay? These are all things that could be listed easily, and you should be writing this stuff down. Don't be transferring money from one bank account to another. Do not take cash out of your bank account and deposit cash into another account. Don't do any of that stuff. Don't get gift money from a family member and just drop it into your bank and say, oh, they're gonna love seeing more money in my bank. Do not take cash, and this is a big one. Do not take cash and deposit it into your bank account. These are all things that you do during the process. Now, generally speaking, not generally, we're gonna order an appraisal for your transaction, for your purchase. That appraisal is going to take a good solid 1 or 2 weeks to come back. I generally tell people 2 weeks, start to finish, from the time it's ordered until the time it's back. Some people watch are probably, Khash, the appraisal comes back after 2 days with me. Okay, good for you. Generally in the United States, it's about 2 weeks. You set expectations up properly. Nobody's upset with that one. When the appraisal comes back, within a week or two of that, you start moving towards closing. As you near closing day, pay attention to this. Again, don't move money around. Don't buy anything out of the ordinary. These are the things I told you earlier on in the transaction. Stick with them as we finish up. When you get near the end, you will be given the final dollar figure to the penny that you will be sending to the title company. Sometimes it's wired to the title company. Sometimes you get a cashier's check and take it to the title company. The day you sign, that's when everybody's coming together. Understand this sooner than later. Sometimes signings are delayed. Why are they delayed? Simple, because we're coordinating the mortgage lender, the buyer, sometimes the seller, definitely the title company, the notary of the title company, and a lot of different moving parts to this transaction to come down to the same day at the same time in the same hour. Sometimes it doesn't always work out. So mentally in your mind, say to yourself, you know, it's the first day of the month right now. I'm not closing for 40 days. Tell yourself up front, it might not be 40, it might be 41 or 42. Typically, the day you sign, you don't take the title to the home until the next day. Generally, we can do same day closings and filings and signings and title and keys and all this other stuff. Don't guarantee that in your mind. Don't set your schedule up such that everything must occur all at once on the same day going into Thanksgiving weekend. When you do stuff like that, bad things happen. Give yourself a little bit of breathing room and understand that sometimes the lenders have delays, the title companies have delays. Title companies and notaries get booked up at the end of the month. A lot of stuff happens at that very end. After you close and you're done and you're handed the keys, then you're off and away to home ownership, and you can do somewhat anything you want, even though I say you got to rebudget yourself and prepare for home ownership, because there's a lot of unexpected things sometimes come up with that also. So nonetheless, this whole process I've laid out for you, this is the process you want to follow as you go through your journey to buying a home. I hope you found this helpful. I hope you wrote notes, and if you didn't, go all the way back and write them all down. But if you set up the expectations correctly, it lowers stress, it keeps the expectations realistic and reasonable, and it makes the process a lot more enjoyable. Watch my upcoming videos, like, comment, ask questions on this video too, by the way. I do answer every single question that comes in. I'm licensed in 45 states myself. I can help you pretty much anywhere you need help at. And I hope you're following and going along, and I hope you catch me in our next video. So thanks so much. Talk to you later. See ya.